I think my dad contacted me. He's dead. Context is important. Story time. Okay, so I was asleep, dreaming, having one of those dreams. Okay. You know when you have those dreams where your significant other is like a total asshole and they're like cheating on you, and it's like, we all have those dreams. Okay, in my dream, I'm like in these dark hallways, like, and I'm turning corners. I'm trying to get out. I can't see anything. My phone either like I either don't have a phone or like my phone doesn't have service or something. The whole time I'm obviously like scared trying to get out of these dark hallways, but at the same time too, I'm like, oh my god, I need to get out of here because like my husband is cheating on me right now. Like, I need to get out of here so I can go find him and beat his ass. Okay, that's dream us. Okay, that's not us. But mainly, I'm just trying to get out of these these hallways. Like it's like a maze, right? And it's pitch black, except sometimes I can kind of see a little bit of light, and there'll be like a table or something pushed up to the wall. It's weird. So suddenly in real life, my son wakes me up, okay? My 2-year-old son. He wakes up every night, but I see that the sun is kind of coming up. It's like 5 a.m. So that means that he's like up. So I do our routine. I go in there, I'm changing his diaper. He peed through. I'm having to change all like his whole jammies and everything. And I'm thinking to myself how he has like, don't judge. He doesn't sleep much, okay? So we have like a little tiny TV in his room, and whenever he's up in the morning before us, we turn on the TV, and it gives us a little bit longer to sleep, okay? So I'm thinking to myself how I'm gonna have to turn on this TV. So I'm like on my son's bed, changing his clothes and everything, and I'm thinking, okay, because I have to pee really bad. So I'm like, I'm gonna go turn on the TV, and then I'll go to the bathroom, and then from there I can cast something from my phone. But it's a really old TV, so it takes forever to turn on, and it takes a long time to get to the point where you can cast, okay? And sometimes before you're able to do that, he's already like up and he's upset. So I'm sitting on my son's bed, and I look over, and the TV has just started to power on its own. My son cannot, first of all, it was off when I came in the room. I didn't turn it on. My son cannot reach it. It is like, you have to press the button on top of the TV really hard. And sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to press it like multiple times. It's turning on. And so I'm just like, okay. Like, if I were younger, I'd be like scared. But I'm just like, okay, thanks, universe, I guess. So I go to the bathroom, turn on a show for him. I go back to sleep. Now I'm back in the dream, okay? I'm walking through these dark hallways trying to get out, but suddenly I can actually see some light, and I walk towards the light, and now I realize, like, now I'm at like a front office area, and I'm realizing that when I was in these dark hallways, I was actually like institutionalized. And now I'm able to leave because my dad is here to pick me up. Obviously, in real life, my dad is not alive, but in my dream, I'm just like, oh, my dad is here. And there's a front office, and there's a desk, but there's no one working the desk, but there is like a sign out sheet, right? So I go down this sheet, and I find my name, and I'm ready to sign next to my name, and I see that somebody had forged my signature. And in the dream, that makes me really upset, because I'm like, wait, so somebody lied and said that I was checked out when I wasn't. So if my dad hadn't come here to check me out, I would have been stuck here forever. No one would have ever known that I was here. No one would have ever like come to check on me or let me leave, because they would have thought that I was already gone. Like, this whole time they had thought I was already gone. So that made me really upset, and I started scribbling over the paper, writing like forged my signature, like fraud, pointing at my name, and then me and my dad are just like, let's get out of here. So now I'm out of that place, and I'm with my dad, and he's driving me around, but I'm still in this dream. So I'm like, Anthony's cheating on me. Like, I need to go find him. I'm like trying to call him and everything, and somehow like we're on the way to go pick him up. But in my dream, it's like my dad is trying to like change the conversation, because it's like my dad, like his soul knows that shit's not real. So it's like he's trying to like change the vibe, and he's like he's excited to see my husband, right? They actually were like really close. So in my dream, yeah, I'm trying to like start shit. I'm like, I need to find Anthony. Like, I'm gonna kill him, right? And my dad's like, oh, like, I'm really excited to see him. Like, like blah blah blah. Like he's just trying to make conversation, right? And it ends up working. Like we go in my dream and we pick up Anthony, and then things are like normal. And I think I kind of forget about all that stuff. And my dad takes us back to like this motel, like that you can live it, like you know those motels that you can like live in temporarily. He takes us back to one of those that it's like we're staying there with him, and he starts like cooking us food and like just like taking care of us. So yeah, I think my dad like saw like I think he turned on the TV first of all. That helped me go back to sleep, and then it's like he saw that I was in this like kind of bad dream, and he completely took me out of it. Like he took me out of that place. Like he took me out of the place with the hallways, and then he like changed the dynamic with me and like the cheating scenario in my dream, and like it just became like a happy dream of like hanging out with my dad, and like that was my dad.
If you grew up anywhere near the Appalachians, then you probably have heard the rule where you do not answer any voices that you hear outside at night. This is After the Fire Stories, where I tell scary stories after the fire has gone out. So grab your favorite snack, your emotional support drink, and settle in, because tonight's story is about someone who broke that rule exactly once. I've gone back and forth on whether to send this because people online make Appalachian stories sound weirdly corny sometimes, and I swear that's not what this is. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, not way out off the grid or anything, but rural enough that you knew your neighbors and you knew the woods behind your house better than the roads in town. My mama used to say all kinds of stuff about the mountains at night, and most of it I took as old people rules. Don't whistle after dark. Don't follow a voice if you can't see who it belongs to. If something calls your name from the tree line and it sounds almost right, go inside and lock the door. I thought it was just mountain folklore. When I was 19, my cousin and I were driving back from a bonfire at maybe 1 in the morning. We weren't drunk. I want to be clear about that because that's always what people jump to first. We were tired though. It was one of those roads that cuts between old woods and a drop off on one side, no street lights, just your headlights and whatever your brain starts inventing in the dark. My cousin was driving. We had the windows cracked because this truck's AC sucked. And about halfway back, we both heard somebody yell my name from the woods on my side of the truck. Not scream, just call it like they knew me. It sounded enough like my brother that my first stupid thought was, why would he be out here? My cousin looked at me and said, was that Eli? And before I even answered, so I know I didn't imagine it, he heard the same thing. Then it said my name again, a little farther up the road this time, like whatever it was had moved without us hearing it move. My cousin rolled the window up immediately and said, don't say anything. That should have been enough. It should have. But I was 19 and trying to act tougher than I felt, so I said, just under my breath, who's there? The woods went dead silent. And I mean dead. No bugs, no tree frogs, nothing. You don't realize how loud the mountains are at night until all of it cuts out at once. My cousin stepped on the gas. I remember laughing a little because I was nervous, and right then, from directly behind the truck, like right on the tailgate, something yelled my name again. Not my brother's voice this time. Same cadence, same rhythm, but lower, rougher, almost wet sounding. And my cousin started praying out loud, which he does not do. He is not that guy. We got to my house and both sat there for a second before getting out, and the porch light was on, and I could see my mom asleep in her recliner through the living room window. Normal, safe, everything fine. I almost convinced myself right then that we just scared ourselves. Then my cousin grabbed my arm and pointed back at the truck. There were handprints all over the tailgate. Not muddy, not bloody, just darker than the paint, like somebody with cold hands had been slapping and dragging their palms all across it. They were too long, that's what I remember. The palms looked narrow and the fingers looked too long. And my mom said we probably brushed against wet branches. My cousin didn't even argue with her, he just left. And for the next week, I kept hearing somebody walking behind the house at night, slow and steady steps in the leaves. And my bedroom was on the back side facing the woods, and around 2 or 3 every morning, I'd wake up and hear something circle the house once, sometimes twice, never fast, like it was going slowly on purpose. It knew it had time. Then it started calling me. Always from the woods, always just beyond where I could see with the porch light. Sometimes it sounded like my brother, once it sounded like my mom, once it sounded exactly like my cousin, which made no sense because he was at college by then. And it never said anything except my name at first. I made the mistake one night of looking out. I didn't go outside, but I pulled the curtain back because I was so angry and just tired and wanted it to just be some idiot messing with me. There was a shape standing at the edge of the tree line, too tall, but not in a dramatic monster way, just tall enough that it felt wrong against the trees. I couldn't see a face. I could see shoulders and arms and the suggestion of a head, probably, and I knew somehow it was looking right at me. Then, in my mother's voice, it said, "You already answered me." I moved out 2 months later. My mom still lives in that house and swears nothing like that ever happened to her, but she also nailed a little iron horseshoe over the back door after I left, and she had never done that before in her life. The part I've never gotten over is this. About a year later, my cousin finally admitted that when I first answered it from the truck, he heard something answer me back from his side too. It said, "Almost." Yeah, absolutely not. The second something in the woods starts using your voice, that's just, I'm done. So this has been After the Fire Stories. If you have any scary stories, then go ahead and send them in to me and I might read yours next.
Anytime I'm scrolling and the videos start with, I grew up around the Appalachian Mountain.
So, I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me is something that I still can't really explain. And what's crazy is that my sister, and I think I've told this story multiple times, so, but this was a couple of years ago. My sister and I, we decided to go out to eat, so we ran to this little drive-up type of thing, and we were getting burgers and stuff, and then we were on our way home, and we randomly were just talking about things that scared us whenever we were kids. And, we lived in a trailer. How it was, structured, sister's bedroom was like over here, little hallway, the bathroom, and the hallway kind of came out into the living room. The living room was connected to the kitchen, and then there was another little hallway that led back to my mom's room, okay? Now, growing up, I hated my mom's room, okay? It literally, I don't know why, but for some fucking reason, I constantly felt, especially whenever it was like the lights were off in that room, I constantly felt like whenever I would like peer into the darkness at the end of the hallway, that I would see a small little hunched over old lady, okay, with her arms like crooked into like little claws, her hair just kind of like down in her face. And I would constantly just like visualize, I guess, in my head that she was going to skitter out of the darkness and get me. The property we grew up on, as far as we know, nobody ever died there. It's up in like the middle of fucking nowhere, like up on top of a mountain, like away from everybody, like, I always visualized this little old woman, and I called her the hag. Okay? Me and my sister were sitting here, and, we were driving home from getting the burgers, and we were talking about the stuff that like scared us whenever we were kids growing up, and she talked about, she had a little chihuahua, and his name was Yogi. And she said that she remembers one time that she woke up to Yogi growling at her like bedroom door, like down the hallway. So she got up and she walked into the hallway, and whenever she did, a man, like a masked man, put a bag over her head and like her, okay? She woke up. As she woke up, then she saw Yogi at the end of the bed growling at the door. Okay? And so she was terrified. She's like, like, y'all can fucking keep it. So she stayed in bed, and, so then I was telling her about how I was always scared of mom's bedroom. I say mom's bedroom, but it was like mom and dad. But I was like, I was always scared of their bedroom because I don't know, it just freaked me out. And then I started to explain to her how I would visualize this little old woman in the bedroom. And I was telling her how, she was in like a nightgown and she had her hands curled and crooked and her hair down in her face and all this stuff. And then my sister started to describe her also. And that, we can't explain it because we asked our parents, like, was there any kind of, any like older woman who might have came to the house that we just somehow got scared of? And they said no. And then like there was, there's no reason that we both would, if it was a dream, there's no reason we would have both had the same consecutive dream about the same kind of entity, right? So I don't think it was a dream. I don't know. And my brain, like now that I've gotten older and I've started to like, do research about the mountains that we grew up in and all this kind of stuff, like one thing that one legend, is a Cherokee legend, is the legend of Spearfinger. If you don't know it, look it up. That bitch is scary, okay? And I was like, okay, maybe it was that, or, I went from like, maybe it was that, maybe it was more like psychological, maybe it was like sleep paralysis, demons and stuff like that. And one of them is called the Night Hag. And she's like an old woman who comes and sits on your chest. And I'm like, okay, that could have been the situation. But then I'm like, how did we both experience the same sleep paralysis entity? Like, it doesn't make any sense, And it's never been explained. We don't know, like, what that was about. And, that's not even getting into, like later on, like, as we got older, we started to, like, I don't know. She saw it, I saw it, mom saw it. An old woman in, like, a Victorian-style dress in the house. We don't even have time for that. But I don't know. So, like, what do you... how could me and my sister both have seen the exact same entity unless it was something paranormal? Let me know. Love you guys. Bye.
I already knew that when I mentioned I had a mimic experience, someone on here was going to want to hear it. So I pre-recorded. You're welcome. So here's my experience with a mimic. And here's the thing. The stories that I shared in this week's episode of the Spooky Files are way more interesting than this, but I'll share it with you anyway. So the story goes that my sister came up for that weekend prior to this incident because we were just hanging out and we went to a haunted locations tour. There's a company up in Northwest Indiana called Chaos Tours or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. And he puts on bus tours and walking tours of haunted locations in the area. So we went on one and we had a great time. We had a couple of creepy experiences and we hung out that weekend and she went home on Sunday like she always does. Now, I'm pretty sure I brought something home with me. So what happened was I slept Sunday night. I got up Monday morning and it was that where you're in between like being asleep and being awake. Right? So I was laying there, my eyes were closed, and I was like, I need to get up and start getting ready for work. But I was kind of out of it still. And as I'm laying there, my dog's in bed with me, and I hear my sister calling my name from the upstairs guest room. Now, I was so out of it that I kind of wasn't thinking straight. And I was like, oh, she must need something. I better get up and go see what she needs. And even my dog popped up and started heading towards the guest room because he thought he heard Aunt Becky calling. And then as I threw the covers off and I put my feet on the floor next to the bed, it dawned on me, it's Monday morning. My sister is 4 hours away in her own house. So she was not upstairs calling my name. I ignored it. Literally, I was like, screw this. I'm ignoring it. And I didn't even react. I got up and just started my day and I was like, I'm going to pretend like that didn't happen. And the good news is that nothing else ever happened after that. That was the only experience I had. But because we were going around haunted locations the weekend prior, I'm kind of wondering if we got a little straggler that came home with us or something. What do you guys think? Also, have you ever had a mimic experience? Because I want to hear about it.
Y'all, being a medium, raising little psychic kids in a pleasantly haunted house is proving to be quite interesting so far. I have a story. So the other day, the kids are getting ready for school. They managed to get ready early, like completely ready to walk out the door. That never happens. Fabulous. That means I can go in the bathroom and actually get myself ready for once. Love that. I'm in the bathroom. They start getting rowdy because of course they do. They're 3 little boys. Now, I am working on myself as a mother constantly, and I am trying really hard to not be a yeller and to remember, just because my inner child feels unsafe does not mean that those children are being unsafe and everything is okay. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But they are getting rowdier and rowdier and rowdier. It is getting out of hand. Nobody's getting hurt. They're just being kind of crazy, running back and forth, being nuts. I feel my blood pressure rising. I am trying to control it. And all of a sudden, I hear a pop. At the same time as the pop, I hear an old man's voice say, "Hey!" And I'm like, "Oh." And then all 3 of the boys, "Ah! Mommy! Mommy! We made the ghost mad! We made the ghost mad!" And I hear, "They're gonna run a hole through the floor." My oldest runs into the bathroom. "Your cabinet door swung open." My middleest said, "I saw him. I saw the man from the pictures." And the other 2 are like, "I didn't say anything." My middleest is very clairvoyant. My youngest says, "I heard him. I heard him yell at me." My youngest is very clairaudient. The other 2 are like, "Oh, I didn't hear anything." And my oldest is like, "Well, I saw those cabinet doors pop open and that's enough for me. Go get your ghost tools now." No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. How about you stop running in the damn house? Fine, we'll stop running. But I need to investigate for debunking. Okay, we can do that. We can do that later. But yeah, so far, super nice living with spiritual babysitters who I can keep my cool because they can get their attention and make them stop doing bullshit. Love that. Love that for me. Thank you, Mr. Larry. Okay, love you, bye.
Turn your lights on because I've got a spooky story for you. This happened when I was 17. When I was still living at my childhood home, I was sneaking out late at night to meet some friends. I went through the back door of the house, and as I turned to face the door, I could just feel somebody watching me. I thought I was busted. I turned to look at who caught me and saw a totally monochrome figure. The hair was completely black, like blacker than black. Her face was static, washed over white, gray, and she was wearing a dress that was in between the 2 colors. No facial features, just the silhouette of a young girl facing me. I reached for the door as fast as I could, and when I went to shut it, it closed very quickly on me. I bolted through my yard and onto the street and couldn't shake the feeling I was being followed. I stayed at my friend's that night. Yeah, I would not be going home after that either. Like, ever. Soon after this happened, I was up late with my mom watching a movie. My dad had just passed away. We finished our movie and we said goodnight after turning the TV, stereo receiver, and DVD player, all with their own remotes, off. After a short amount of time in bed, I am jarred awake by the sound of static with the speakers cranked up and the TV on with no input. It sounds like poltergeist in there. My mom and I met in the hallway, surprised to see that we had both been awoken to an empty house. A few years ago, when I was 23 and graduated from college, I finally told my family about the first occurrence. Before I'm able to finish my description of the ghost, my sister finishes for me, telling me that her and her friend used to see a little girl in our backyard playing in a sundress. She said that she looked maybe 12. Our neighbor, who was the original owner, shared a story with us about the family that originally bought the house after it was built. It was a young family whose daughter passed away from leukemia. She would have been about the right age. Looking back, the girl wasn't scary or harmful. My sister had the same impression. To this day, I believe what we saw and haven't seen anything like it ever since. I also want to note that my dog used to scare the crap out of me because he would randomly stare down the hallway to my sister's room and he would growl with his hair on end. It would always freak me out and I never connected the two until sometime after seeing the ghost or whatever it may have been. I do fully believe that a lot of ghosts are not harmful. They're just scary to us because we're like, oh, there's a ghost in here. But a lot of them are just living their own ghost lives. Like, this girl was just like hanging out. If you want to send me your story, I have an email in my bio and I'll put it right here. I've been getting off of Reddit, but honestly, I'm not finding really, really good stuff. So if you have a good one that you want me to share, send me an email and I might film a video on it.
Talk about a Uno reverse, that a ghost comes to visit you and is so overwhelmed by you that it immediately turns around and leaves, and to top it off, you catch it all on camera. To catch everyone up, Holly was in the middle of ranting to herself and crying about what a terrible day she was having when she heard something. Her door was opening, but there was no one home. She turned around, moved her camera, and saw her door visibly open, and she's waiting to see someone come in. No one comes in. In fact, whoever or whatever it was then seemingly turns around and leaves and shuts the door behind them. She continues to break down sobbing, with the good news being that she's laughing about it now. At the time, she was too upset to even be scared. As someone who has broken this video down and watched it multiple times, I think it was one of two things. Either a male ghost who just simply was like, I'm not handling a chick who's already having her own mental breakdown, I don't need to be a part of it. Or it was like a grandmother spirit who was like just peeking her head in to say, it's okay, honey, you're gonna get through this, and then stepped out to let her continue to have her moment. Either way, Holly's response to this was top tier, and I'm going to tag her where I can.
Have y'all ever had something sit down on your bed? Like you can feel the shift in the bed. Well, I did. And welcome back to my page where I don't spill tea, I brew coffee. And not everything that I serve is going to be safe. So, toxins. This story actually happened to me. And when I was little, I moved into a room that used to belong to my great-grandmother who had already passed. But it wasn't just her room. It was also my dad's room. And he had passed too. So, I'm a child sleeping in a room that's already held 2 people who were gone, and I think I was around like 9 or 10 years old. So at first, nothing seemed weird to me until the nights started changing. I would be laying in bed and I would feel it, y'all. It would be like the bed would shift, like someone just sat down on it. And I'm not talking about like imagination. I'm talking about seeing the mattress sink in right next to me. And when whatever it was got up, the bed would rise back up again and it would shift again. Like real weight was there. But at the time, I wasn't scared because every time I looked, I didn't see anything. So in my mind, it was just normal. Until one day, I was talking to my grandmother and I casually told her that there was a man in my room. And I started describing him and what he looked like. His build, his presence, and I remember her face changing, y'all. She got really, really quiet, and then she said, that's my dad. He died long before you were born. And that's when it hit me, because I had never seen a picture of him, never heard any details like that about him, but somehow I described him perfectly. And around the same time, I was already dealing with a lot. Things had happened to me before I even got to that house that left me traumatized. And that's why I ended up there in the first place. So I wasn't just a kid in a quiet room. I was a kid already carrying fear. And something or someone was sitting with me at night. It's like they knew. And to this day, I still don't know if it was just watching me or if it was protecting me. But I do know one thing. That bed was never empty. And I'm serving it black today, y'all. So stay aware of my toxins. I love y'all.
My son kept waving at this person that I just couldn't see. And then he drew a picture of a dark figure. And I'm convinced it's an evil spirit. So this story comes in from Joyce. And she says her and her son just moved into these apartments about 5 weeks ago. This is pretty recent. She says it's just her and her son. And the first night, everything went smoothly. But it didn't take long for things to switch up, because the very next night, things started getting weird. So they're sitting down to eat dinner, and he just keeps staring past her. Not at her, not around her, straight past her. And he's got this very focused, zoned out look. And then out of nowhere, he lifts his hand and he waves. And she just kind of looks at him. And Joyce is like, who are you waving at, buddy? And he was like, oh, just my friend. So Joyce is thinking at this point in time, it's just... oh my god, y'all, my lights are freaking out. Creepy. Anyway, so at this point in time, she is just thinking that it's an imaginary friend, no big deal. Next morning, he comes down, they're getting ready to eat breakfast, and he goes to sit at the table and he starts coloring a picture. Same thing happens. He looks at mom straight past her and just starts waving. And she was like, oh, you waving to your friend? And he was like, yes. And so Joyce is like, well, what's your friend's name? And he says, oh, it's just Miss Angel. And she kind of looks and she's like, oh, your friend's a adult? And he says, yeah, it's Miss Angel. She's so nice, but she doesn't really like you much. So at this point in time, Joyce is starting to get freaked out. She's like, no. He finishes picture and he takes it to his mom, and it's a picture of him, his mom, and then this dark figure, this faceless dark figure. And it's kind of looking down at her. It's a little weird, but they're still living there. So he's still waving and talking and playing with this person or this thing that she thought was an imaginary friend. Every time he draws a picture, it's behind her. And then every time she's in the room and the imaginary friend shows up, it's like past her. He says, if you guys have any idea what is going on and what she should do, drop it in the comments. She is not able to move at the moment, so they're just kind of dealing with it. I don't know. This one is super creepy. It does kind of feel like it might be attached to the mom, even though the son can see it. If you have any spooky, creepy, scary, unexplainable stories, send it to my email. It's in the bio. And as always, stay strange, stay blessed. Until next time.
I recently revealed that I am a popular Reddit author. I write spooky and scary stories that are a lot more creepy than the average ones I read. So I hope you're all tucked into bed, because after this one, you may not want to get out. My husband has been leaving the room every time that I walk in it. I want to start by saying I almost didn't post this because it sounds so small when I say it out loud. My husband leaves the room when I walk into it. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I know how that sounds: paranoid, oversensitive, the kind of complaint that gets laughed off at brunch. But I need to tell someone, because I'm not crazy. I've been watching this happen every day for almost a month, and I don't know what to do with it anymore. Marcus and I have been married for 4 years, together for 7. I want to be very clear about something before I get into this. My husband is not a cruel person. He's never been cold or distant or strange. He's the kind of man who remembers the names of every person he's ever met. He cries at commercials. He once turned the car around because he thought he'd been rude to a gas station attendant. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to describe is so completely unlike him that even now, sitting here writing this, I keep trying to find another explanation. It started in February. I came home from work and he was in the kitchen making dinner. Normal. I dropped my bag in the hallway, said I was home, and walked into the kitchen. Before I even rounded the corner, he turned the stove off and walked out through the door into the living room. I assumed he needed something. I poured myself a glass of water and went to the living room to find him, but he wasn't there. I heard him upstairs. I called up asking if he was okay. He said yes, totally fine, just getting something. He came back down and dinner was normal. Conversation was normal. I forgot about it by the time I went to bed, but it kept happening. Not every day at first, maybe once or twice a week. I'd enter a room and he'd leave it, not in an obvious or dramatic way, just quietly with a reason. He needed to check something, he forgot his phone, he was going to start a load of laundry, always a reason and always calm. After about 3 weeks, I asked him directly if something was wrong, if I'd done something to upset him. He looked genuinely confused, almost hurt that I'd asked. Said, of course not. Said he loved me and I was imagining things. I believed him. I wanted to. But I started paying attention after that, really paying attention. And the more I watched, the more certain I became. It wasn't random, it was every time. Every single time I walked into a room, he left. He never left abruptly. It always looked natural, but he left. I started testing it. I'd walk into the bedroom, he'd go get water. I'd follow him to the kitchen, he'd remember seeing something in the garage. I'd go to the garage, he'd get a phone call he had to take privately. I once managed to be in the same room as my husband for longer than a few minutes. And the thing was, he didn't seem upset. He wasn't cold or mean. When we were in the same space, he was warm. He'd kiss my cheek in passing, he'd squeeze my hand. He seemed like himself in every way except for the leaving. I told my sister about it over the phone. She thought I was being paranoid. Men zone out, she said. He's probably just going through something at work. Maybe. But I didn't think so. There's something else I haven't mentioned yet. Small things. The kind of small things you dismiss because you don't want to be dramatic. My coffee has been tasting wrong. Not bad exactly, just off. Like something's missing. I've been cold constantly, even indoors, even when Marcus turns the heat up without me asking. Which he's been doing a lot. I'll walk through a room and he'll reach for the thermostat without a word, like he can tell. Even when I haven't said anything. I thought that meant he still knew me, still cared. Now I'm not sure. About 6 weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and Marcus wasn't in bed. Not unusual. He gets up sometimes when he can't sleep. I lay there for a while, waiting to hear him come back to bed. I didn't. After about 20 minutes, I got up to go check on him. I found him in the hallway outside our bedroom door, just standing there. Perfectly still, facing the door, in the dark. Marcus? I said. He turned round slow, and he smiled at me. His normal smile, the smile I'd known for 7 years. Couldn't sleep, he said. Go back to bed. I'll be up in a minute. I went back to bed. He came back to bed a few minutes later and fell asleep without a word. In the morning, he made breakfast and asked about my week, and I almost convinced myself I'd dreamed the whole way entirely. I didn't bring it up. I didn't know why. Something told me not to. Last night I tried something different. Instead of following him room to room, I just sat in the living room and waited. Stayed completely still. Didn't move, didn't call his name, and after a while I heard him in the kitchen. The sound of him opening the refrigerator, the slow sound he makes when he's thinking about what to eat. Then silence. Then very quietly from the kitchen doorway I heard him say something. Too soft to make out. Not to me. I don't think he knew I was there. I got up and walked toward the kitchen. He was standing at the counter with his back to me. His shoulders were shaking. I thought at first that he was laughing at something on his phone. He wasn't laughing. I've never seen Marcus cry like that. Not at his father's funeral. Not when we lost a pregnancy 4 years ago. He stood at the counter with his hands pressed flat against the surface. Not making a sound, just shaking. I stood in the doorway for a long time. I didn't go to him. I don't know why. My feet wouldn't move. Eventually, he straightened up, wiped his face with the back of his hand, and took a breath. And then he turned around and walked directly through the doorway where I was standing, back toward the living room. He didn't look at me. He just walked around me. He walked through the doorway like I wasn't there. I've been sitting here for over an hour trying to decide if I actually moved, if I even stepped aside without thinking and don't remember it. That's probably what happened. I'll update when I can. And that concludes tonight's episode of After Midnight Stories. If you like this concept of me reading you the most popular Reddit stories I have created, then let me know. And I write these 100% on my own. None of this is stolen content. This is something I've done for a little bit as a hobby that I've secretly done. But now you guys know. So if you do find me on Reddit, don't out me, please, okay? But I hope it didn't scare you too bad, and I hope you don't have to get out of bed.
My son told me not to open the door before anyone knocked. So my son looked at me and said, "Don't open the door." I asked him why, because this happened before with him. He just kept staring at the front door, didn't say anything else. So I walked over, looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. No cars outside, no movement, nothing. So I told him, "There's nobody outside." And he shook his head slow, like he knew something I didn't know. Then he said, "He's not outside yet." And that's when I stopped, because I never told him someone was coming over. I never mentioned anything about the door. And then about 5 seconds later, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not even aggressive, just enough to let you know someone's there. So I checked again. Still nobody. So now I'm thinking maybe it's a prank. Maybe it's kids. But my son grabbed my arm tight and said, if he sounds like me, don't open it. I don't know who was at that door, but I never opened it. This is just a life lesson. Pay attention to what your kids are saying. They may see things that we as adults fail to see. And honestly, I'm starting to get scared.
Working the psych unit is not for the weak. A viewer sent me this story and she said after this experience, it made her quit working in psych altogether. She had a patient, we are just going to call him Ron. Now, Ron was a little bit different than the rest of the people that was on the unit. He was calm, he was kind, and he was charming. The kind of patient that you accidentally lower your guard with. But the staff was already warned that he was a diagnosed psychopath. The kind of person that doesn't feel but knows exactly how to make you feel. Do you want to hear some creepy stuff from Denise Jules? Buckle up, it's story time. Now, he was on the unit because of self-inflicted wounds, and whenever she talked to him, she said that it felt like it was just someone who was trying to be human. Like every reaction was learned, kind of studied. And this is another thing about the unit. There was no visitors, there was locked doors, constant supervision, and the patients were unable to just come and go as they please. And they definitely were taught not to tell the patients anything about their personal life. But Ron took a liking to her, and he watched her closely. He remembered everything she said. And he ended up on the unit for about a month. And when he discharged her, he hugged her and held on a second too long and said, "Thank you for seeing me." And shout out to Dana with an H for fueling this story time as she bought me a coffee. Thanks, boo. Later on, they cleaned out his room through the routine and they looked under the mattress and everything. And that's where they found this drawing. It was detailed and very realistic. And all of the other staff was very impressed. They were talking about how talented Ron was, but she was completely quiet because the room that was in that picture was her bedroom. Like, to the T. And there was no way that he would have known what her room looked like from inside that psych unit and not without ever knowing her before she met him there. She tried to rationalize it and say that it was just a coincidence and that her mind was playing tricks on her until a year later when she came home and outside her apartment door, she seen him standing, smiling, like he had been waiting for her. And before she could even ask how, he said, "I knew you were here." He took a step closer and said, "I could smell you. I've been looking for you ever since I left." So do you think that this was just a psych patient who was obsessed with his nurse, or was this something else? And if you have a story that you would like to share, you can send it to denise.julesstory@gmail.com. And as always, have your best spooky day. Bye.
So listen to me.
I'm back on Appalachia TikTok with all the creepy stories and videos, and I know I could never live there. Number one, I would never live there. Who would live there? Yes, it is beautiful. Will say that. But is beauty worth the devil? I would have to be on the top dose of Zoloft, Zofran, ADHD meds, all the drugs, perks, actually. The hard stuff you get on the streets might be really what I needed if I lived there, okay? I would be hooting and hollering over every little thing. A pin drop, screaming. A creak in the door, screaming. I would carry around the biggest crucifix y'all have ever seen with me 24/7. Holy water on deck. Anointing oil on deck. I ain't playing. Any little thing. Shadow, period. I would have no voice. Me and the Lord be like this. He'll be sick of me. I'll be rebuking everything. And, they say don't knock on the door, if you hear your name or whatever, don't listen to it. There could quite literally be somebody on my front door. I could see them, bloody, after a car accident, about to die on my front porch, and I would not open that door. I would. In the Appalachian Mountains, I'm sorry, homie. I'm the last person you're going to see, because I don't trust y'all. What I look like? I will call 911 for you, but that's all I'm doing. If they don't get there quick enough, I'm sorry. Sorry, I ain't trusting nothing. I ain't trusting nothing. No one, no thing. And I ain't even gonna walk in the woods during the day. And I won't be outside. As soon as it hits like 5 o'clock and that sun starts going down, I'm gonna have my padlock. I'm gonna have 13 deadbolts, okay, on all windows and doors. Because they can get in your house. You heard them stories about the things getting in the house? No! And I will not have a basement either if I live there. I ain't playing around. Single story. Thank you. And then the locals are like, oh, this is all just fake stories. They're all just silly stories. I don't really care. I don't care. I don't care if they're made up. I don't care if they're real. I ain't testing it. You can. You can go out there hooting and hollering at night, whistling, calling for the things that live in that. You can do that. I ain't doing it. You know why? Because I will survive a horror movie. I will. You won't. But that's none of my business. I can't help you. The Lord can, though. It ain't none of my business. It's really not. It's none of my business if it's true or false. I don't want to find out. That is my very compacted list of why I would never live in the Appalachian Mountains. Y'all can. That's great for y'all. I would not survive. If I was ever confronted by one of these things, I would just surrender. I would. I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't. Because what am I going to do? Fight? Fight with an 8-foot tall skeleton? 9-foot tall humanoid? No. I'm 5 foot and I'm fat. I'm just going to be like, alright, I'm going to say the Lord's Prayer and that's going to be that. I ain't even going to try.
I'm going to share a spooky story with you while I also show you my new set that I got from Medicube today. First, let's start with this. And also, let me preface this by saying this is for entertainment purposes only. Brandon and I went to Eastern Tennessee. It was last September or October, I believe it was, right? And we were driving these back roads. And these back roads were just, gravel, dirt, not much of anything. And we come to the stop sign. And when we get to the stop sign, I look over to my left and I see all these people out in this field. And I'm like, what are they doing? Because we're in the middle of nowhere. And all that's in this field is just like this little shack. A little tin shack, right? Nothing special. And the more I pay attention to these people, the more I realize that these people are wearing clothes that are from not this time, like probably like 1800s time frame. And they all had satchels over their shoulders. So by this point, I'm like, what is going on? The more I pay attention to these people, the more I realize that every person that's standing over there in this field is black, which trips me out even more. And then I realized that all these people that are in the field that are black are in a cotton field picking cotton. So as we were stopped at the stop sign, and I'm checking this whole situation out, and I pointed out to Brandon, these people don't even notice us. Like, they don't even recognize that we're there at the stop sign. And we were there for longer than usual because we were both like, what is going on? And as soon as we turned off from the stop sign, I looked at Brandon and I was like, can we please go back there to make sure this is like really happening or not happening? And Brandon was like,
nope, not getting stuck in that time warp.
So we continued on down our way, and still to this day, I am pretty damn sure that we experienced like a mass ghost sighting. It was very creepy. So clearly I've sat with this for quite a few months, and it really just weirded me out, to say the least. And I told Brandon, like, I'm pretty fairly certain what we saw were ghosts. And I say that because they didn't even look normal. They almost look like you could see through them. For real. Like if you stared at them long enough, it almost seemed like they like weren't there, but they were there. And we both saw them. Completely weirded me out. Haven't stopped thinking about it since. And so now I leave you all with a question. Did this set make my skin look nice or what? I'm gonna link it below. And also, do you believe we saw ghosts? Because people see this stuff all the time at Gettysburg. Mass ghost sightings. And I believe that what Brandon and I experienced wasn't some plantation that's still going on in the foothills of Tennessee. And if it is, then we need to figure out what is going on.